Now that I've specified an escalation team, what I'd like to do is associate this escalation team with the subscriptions, or the subscription for this particular notification. Now if you notice, Bob Smith is still subscribed. So one of the things I'd like to do, it's an option really, I'd like to clear him from receiving any notifications. I'll do that by just unsubscribing him. Now that doesn't do anything, of course, to the history of his notifications. Those are still going to be there. It's just that he'll no longer receive them. And the reason we want that is because he's now part of an escalation team. So we're kind of moving forward here. Now once we've done that, now we're ready to grab the escalation team that we just created. Here it is, CDT escalation. We'll drag that, drop it here. As you can see now, these three are part of that escalation team, and they're subscribed to that notification. Now this does mean they're going to be receiving this in series. First Bob, then Rudy, then JD Hogg. Now compare that to a different construct that would be a group. You can have a group of people who receive the notification all at the same time. We're not interested in that in this case, but of course that's easy enough to create. We just create a group of users. They would all get the notification at once. Now another change I'd like to make is I would like to require acknowledgement this time. So if I go to the subscriptions option, or the subscription item, choose a right mouse click and choose options, I can set this, instead of automatic acknowledgement, I can set this to one required acknowledgement. That's going to require an acknowledgement before this notification will no longer trigger. I also want to point out that if we had a group of people who were all receiving this at the same time, you would see this drop down here would reflect the number of people receiving this notification. So if you wanted to, you could specify that, say, 3 out of 5 people had to acknowledge something for it to be acknowledged in the trigger. Well, I'm ready to go ahead and check this in. Again, you can see the little red check mark indicates it hasn't been saved. That's now been saved. And if the notification were not running at this point, you could go ahead and start the notification now so that we could test it. Now, like we did before, if we want to test this, we need to go into the editor, the archive editor, and toggle that tag so that it goes into an alarm state, into a notification state. So if we take a look right now, it is not in an alarm state. It's not active. We haven't triggered anything. Now there is a history for this though. If you remember, we did not just create this notification. Remember, this is the one that we originally subscribed Bob Smith to. So this does have some history. It's just now we've added a different list of subscribers, an escalation team. So let me go ahead and demonstrate how to test this. I'll bring up to my screen a copy of the archive editor, and here is the tag that we are making use of. If we take a look at this, there's currently no changes in the last 2 hours, so I'm going to make a change of, let's go with 277 for the current time. Now that's over 200, so what we should see once we save this is we should see that this is going to trigger a notification. When the notification triggers, it should send an email first to Bob Smith, but then because we have the there we go. So because we do have an escalation team set up, we should see it's going to go to other people within 30 seconds. So it just triggered. Bob Smith gets the email, and we should see at let's see, at about 4 o'clock and maybe 10 or 11 seconds we should see another value show up here. That's going to be escalating to Rudy Wells. Now the escalation period is defined right here, so that's something that you can modify if you need to. There we go. So we see it's been escalated to Rudy Wells. Whoops, I got the math wrong here. Yeah, there we go. 30 seconds later, it goes to Rudy Wells. As you can see, it's an escalation. And then 30 seconds after that, it's going to go to JD Hogg. Now that's the first instance, or the first iteration of this. Then we're going to wait for that 2-minute time period. If remember, the resend interval is 2 minutes, so every 2 minutes we'll see this repeat. Yeah, there we go. It's been escalated to JD Hogg, and at exactly 30 seconds after. And to test to see if this is actually working with email, let's go ahead and go back to our desktop and launch email for, let's go with Bob Smith. Or actually, let's go with JD Hogg. Bob Smith, he's already received a lot, but JD Hogg is brand new. Also Rudy Wells. Let's go with JD Hogg. I'll double click and run this as we're running Outlook as JD Hogg, and we should see that we have some updates coming in. Yeah, there we go. This is indicating at right around 3:56 we have a triggering of that CDT warnings. That's the notification that sent this email. Now, this is going to repeat every 2 minutes. From here, I can go ahead and acknowledge from here. I think I'll do that in just a second. Just remember, if you do get a prompt, a password prompt for these user addresses, the password is student. And also, if these links aren't working for some reason, you can always choose, do a right click and choose Run As, and that will give you the option to run this as a different user. JD Hogg, for example, would be jhogg, and the password would be student. So let's go ahead and acknowledge. Now let's go back and look at our notification. We should have gotten some more. Yeah, here, this shows you the iterations here. So at 3:56 and 20, we notified Bob. 30 seconds later, Rudy. 30 seconds later, JD. At 2 minutes after the initial notification, 2 minutes and 1 second here, we're re-notifying Bob. As you can see, it's showing resent. And looks like JD Hogg just got another email. So this is going to continue until this is acknowledged or it no longer is in an alarm state. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and take this out of an alarm state. I'll go ahead and set this to 88. This again is in the archive editor, in the data section, archive editor. And what we should see is that this will disappear from the active list because, of course, once the trigger tag is no longer above 200, it's no longer active. We should still be able to see a history. Let's look at the more recent stuff. And there's one thing I wanted to point out. You'll notice that only one of these individuals was sent the notification that this was no longer in an alarm state. Yeah, that was JD. If you recall, when we went ahead and set up this escalation team, when we looked at JD, his option, notify on close, was checked. He was the only one checked. So when this did close out, he did get a notification. And if we take a look at his emails, his email, you can see the difference. Here's the re-notify. Now I can tell that this is still in an alarm state because the value is high, which is what we first assigned. But now if I take a look at this most recent one, the value is normal, priority normal. This basically is showing me that the notification is no longer firing. So to summarize what we did, this is the end of a long exercise here. First we created an element called monitored tags, whose attribute was pointing to a specific tag, my CDT158. We then created a notification called CDT warnings. The trigger for that is that when that tag is greater than 200, then we will set this result equal to high. Now we made some subscriptions to that, first Bob Smith by himself and then an escalation team. And as you can see, the history shows us that the escalation is repeating every 2 minutes, per this resend interval here. Now the one thing we didn't do, and we'll do in a subsequent exercise, is show you how to add additional content.